Hey guys, in this video I'll show you how to make this car controller in Unity. This car controller has a lot of built-in features. It comes with skid marks. It also allows you to change the suspension height of each wheel, add as many wheels as you want, change the wheel prefabs, the wheel sizes. You can use this to make off-road vehicles like this one. You can also use it to make race vehicles for racetracks, rear-wheel drive cars, all-wheel drive cars, etc. So it's very customizable for what you need. And in this video, we'll just go over setting up a new Unity project and how to use this to set up your vehicle and show you how the code works and how you can use it to make different things. So this is the project right here. You can see here, I can go to select an element and, for example, increase the suspension length on this wheel here. And you can see how that works. There's all of this functionality that you can change here, but we'll go over to a new Unity project and get started. I'll go over to new project, Universal 3D. I'll just name it car tutorial and we'll head into Unity. Alright, in this new Unity project, we have, we'll start off by creating a 3D object cube, and this will be our ground. And we'll just make this a big platform like 50 by 50. And now on this, we'll add a new 3D object, a cube, and we'll just call this the car. We'll move it up a little bit. We'll keep the scale the same, and we'll change the box collider. So we want to increase it on the Z-axis to just be a little larger, and also on the X-axis, something like this. Get out of this menu. So positive Z direction this way is the forwards. So that's how that's going to work. Now I want to go here, add a new component and call it car. Go create new script, create an add. And now I will just paste in the car script and I'll explain it later in the video. So open this up in Visual Studio Code or whatever your code editor is. And so this is the script. This code will be in the description as well as the GitHub link, so you can check that out. So paste this in, save, and now go back to our project. And there's a few things we need to do. Just click yes, if that shows up. Alright, select our car, and now you can see there's a bunch of settings here. So first, go over to the wheels and just make sure there's 4 wheels. And for each of these, I'll just put in these values here. You can copy this down. This seems to work pretty well for me. So I'll just go over what each of these does. So we've got the position of the wheel, the turn angle, the suspension length, the mass of the wheel in kilograms. So a value of like 1 to 5 is pretty reasonable for this. The size of the wheel in meters, this is the radius, by the way. The engine torque in Newton meters, then the brake strength, and then whether or not it's sliding. This sliding thing is, you don't need to check this or anything, it doesn't matter. It's just so that you can see visually here when it's sliding while you're playing the game. And yeah, there's a few more properties here. There's a grip multiplier. So I found that setting these to like 14, and then the suspension force, you can kind of adjust it however you want. 40 is a good value, and yeah, the rest are good. I'm going to lower the downforce a little bit. And yeah, so I'll go into the skid. We'll add these different prefabs. So first, alright, I'm going to drag in this Cybertruck 3D model. You can find 3D models on the internet for this kind of stuff. So if we go into the source folder, there's this object here. I'm just going to unpack this prefab and I'll remove a lot of the items. So these are the wheels. 3 out of the 4 I'll delete. And then this is the main body of the vehicle, and then all of these other things I will just delete. So what we need is just the body of the vehicle and then a single wheel. So now basically, you can drag the Cybertruck to be a child of the main car vehicle and just move it so that it's properly aligned and like centered on this. Something reasonable like this. And now this wheel, just drag it out and just rename this to wheel. And then create a new empty game object, and we'll just call this wheel prefab. And then in this wheel prefab, we'll create a new empty object, call it wheel holder, and make sure to reset the transform on this, and then drag the actual wheel graphic into the wheel holder, and then reset the transform. And now what you should see is a positive Z direction should be forwards. So if it's not, then you need to rotate the wheel item so that positive Z direction is forwards. So that's good. Additionally, reset that. If you want to get the sizing correct, create a new 3D object cube and just scale the wheel down to be the same size as this cube, something like this. So that will help line it up properly once we get it in the game. And now drag this wheel prefab into your assets here and delete it from your scene. Now go back to your car and we'll drag in the wheel prefab into the wheel prefab section. And now let's see if this works quickly. Okay, it's launched away. So basically here what we need to do is for now select the box collider and just drag this up, because right now the wheels are getting caught up there, and that's what it looks like right now. So yeah, as you can see, this works. It's just about lining stuff up right now, but yeah, we've got this fully functioning vehicle already. Alright, so get out of this. Basically what we need to do is, let me go back. We need to drag this so that it's lined up properly, something like this. Okay. This might take some messing around with. I'm also going to disable the mesh renderer for that little cube down there. Just make sure this collider reasonably lines up. Also, you can hold Option on Mac when you're dragging these to drag it symmetrically, in case you didn't know. But yeah, something like this should be good. We'll see if the wheels are lined up. Yeah, that's a lot better. Alright, you can right click the transform and then copy the component so that once you get out of play mode, you can paste component values and it will properly adjust it. And yeah, now we've got a pretty good looking vehicle. So one thing you might have noticed is the wheels on this side look good, but the wheels on the other side don't look very good. One thing you can do is just actually write a script that will flip the wheel depending on if it's left or right. What I usually do is I just copy this wheel and then on the X scale, just flip it 90 degrees and move it out a little bit. Flip it this way. And then just move it like this. I know it's not ideal, but this just gets the job done for now. You can always just like write code that will just flip it if it's on the left side or something like that. That's probably a good way to modify the script to get practice in, but this is something that just always works. And yeah, we've got our vehicle here. Now I'll go into adding a few more details like the skid marks. I'll explain the code, and I'll also add a camera controller. So go back into here. On the main camera, we'll create a new object, call it camera, new script, create an add, and we'll open this up in Visual Studio. So in our camera script, I'll just paste this in. I'm not going to go too much in detail in this. It's basically just a very basic camera controller where you can drag in this main car thing, the main car script into here. And then if you uncheck just follow, you can pan around the vehicle. If you want it to not have any mouse controls and just follow the vehicle, then you can check the just follow. So it's just a basic thing I've created, and you can modify these zoom speed, min field of view, max field of view, etc. through there. But I think by default it's pretty good, and we can look at this vehicle here driving around. Alright, now here in your hierarchy, you want to go and add a new trail. So the way you do this is you go right click, go to effects, and add a trail. And now this trail is going to be our skid mark. So we want to change the alignment to transform Z so that it lines properly with the ground. Disable emitting, and also uncheck cast shadows, set that to off. You can change the width here to something like, I don't know, 0.37-ish. And then you can just change the color to black. And of course you can add textures later onto this and whatever. But yeah, so we'll bring this trail, make a prefab of it, delete it from the scene, go to your car, drag it into the skid mark prefab, and let's see if this works. Alright, go back into your trail renderer and just set the color to white. We're actually going to create a new material that we add in. I think this works more often. So we'll go to create material and just call this skid mark. We'll just make this actually black, and then set the surface type to transparent. And then go to your trail and just drag this onto here so that it uses this material, and it should show up in the material section. And now as we can see here, this is fully working with skid mark. So if I hold space, it activates handbrake and the wheels just slide. It also slides if you turn too hard. And yeah, so this is basically a fully working vehicle. Now I'm going to go into the more inner workings of the script and how all of this functions. So in our car script here, if we go into here, first I want to show you what happens if we like uncheck all of these assists. So basically the steering assist makes it so that you don't turn too hard and lose control of the vehicle. So here, for example, it's turning way too hard and it just spins out, so that helps with that. Then there's the throttle control, which ensures you don't apply too much throttle and spin out. And then the braking assist obviously helps with braking, so you don't brake too hard and start sliding as well. I'll go into the script now. Alright, so this script is mostly the same as my previous video, so if you want another view of this, you can go to the previous video. I've made a few small adjustments here. Basically, we've got the wheel properties class, which has a bunch of wheel properties. A lot of them are public and hidden in inspector. So here we've got access to the actual skid trail of that wheel, the game object of it. I won't go over all of these. But yeah, in the car itself, we've got a few constants here and a few other variables. So coefficient of static friction, the list of wheels, etc. And then wheel grip multipliers, suspension force, and then the bools for the assist. Here in the start method, basically, we just set it up for, we just instantiate the wheels, and we also set up the skid marks. This just sets up the skid marks and instantiates an object at each wheel, and then sets up their position and rotation, etc. So yeah, we set up the rigid body here, and then in the update method, this is where we get the input. So this chunk of code here for update, we get player input. Here, this just gets the raw axis horizontal and vertical, and then this multiplier here in the user input.x is just so that when you're driving faster, you don't turn as hard. You can adjust the value here to make it more or less aggressive, or you can remove it entirely to get full control over this. But basically, as you drive faster, it turns less aggressively, which lines up more realistically. Then here we've got, this is basically for the assists. So this, we get the max slip, like which wheel is slipping the most, and it's kind of a percentage. It's like if it's 100% or higher, then it's sliding, but if it's lower, then it's not sliding. It's kind of like the threshold of like its max capabilities, like max traction. So we check here, like in each wheel, we basically check, so if this percentage is above 96%, like if it's almost on the verge of slipping, we'll reduce the throttle so you don't throttle as hard. And each of these values is different just because of the way it tunes. Like for example here, the braking assist goes to 99% just to make it more aggressive. And then the steering is 70% because often like these different aspects have different effects that can be more or less dramatic. So for example, if you're building a rear wheel drive car, you will want this to be something like 0.7, but if it's all-wheel drive, maybe you can get away with making this 0.8 or 0.9. So this is kind of up to you to tune. It's kind of interesting. But basically, when it reaches these thresholds or exceeds it, it just tries to reduce it and lerps back to a more neutral value. So for example, 0 throttle or 0 turning. This is basically a piece of code that will turn in the direction of vehicle movement if it's sliding to try to correct it. I'm not sure how well this works. You can probably remove this and mess around with something yourself, but that's basically the update method. Then in the fixed update is where we apply all the physics, and this is the main chunk of the code. And the whole thing is basically in a for each loop for each like for each wheel in wheels. This is just the downforce. And yeah, we have a raycast. The general idea behind all of this is the wheels have an angular velocity, and we do a bunch of calculations to calculate how should we change that angular velocity and what type of force should we apply to the vehicle. So this is just a lot of physics. If you want a dedicated video for me to go over this block of code, leave a comment down below, or you can use ChatGPT to kind of understand the physics behind this. But yeah, we have basically, I'll go down here to this. So if it's grounded, then we do all of these changes. Otherwise, we just disable the skid trail and then make sure the wheel object position is properly set. This bottom piece of code just rotates the wheel visual so it looks like it's spinning at the correct speed with respect to the angular velocity. And then when we are grounded in this main block, and by grounded I mean the wheel is touching the ground, so we're not in the air, we have a few constants here for the springs and the suspension, as well as the normal force, the spring direction, and then we add force for the spring direction, as well as the total world force. This is the actual driving force of the wheels spinning and applying like traction and force to the vehicle, applying it at the hit point. There's a lot of code here for the skid trails. That's what this mainly is. And yeah, that basically sums it up. This is just calculations based on wheel grip, lateral velocity, to calculate the friction values. And then here we adjust the angular velocity. Additionally, if we press space, I just use this as handbrake and set the angular velocity to 0 instantly. So that's kind of the main part of this code. We also have here some code that uses coefficient of static friction, as well as like the coefficient of kinetic friction. So yeah, that's basically to sum up the car script. And yeah, that's basically it. You've got a functioning car here. You can use this for a lot of different things, like various racing games, off-road games, etc. Thank you for watching. There is a link in the description again for the GitHub as well as the code. Leave a comment if you have any questions and I'll do my best to help you out. And make sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.